Clarence Thomas is really working hard to be the #1 black white supremacist. Right now, Candace Owens holds the lead solidly, but Clarence is a distant second. He took a swat at Brown versus Board of Education. Settled, all right? With millions watching and many people benefiting from this program called Indisputable, we just need 1% of the viewers to become a paid member so we can continue to bring this content to you. Now back to the show. Put it up full mass. Per slate, the Supreme Court's 6-3 decision in the Alexander versus South Carolina NAACP case on Thursday severely undermines efforts against racial gerrymandering, as their vote upheld a congressional map that a lower court said had been racially gerrymandered to openly discriminate against black voters in the state. The Supreme Court ruling will allow lawmakers to use race as a proxy for partisanship in their redistricting. Justice Alito has said the assumption of legislative good faith is present in instructing the lower court or courts to largely disregard circumstantial evidence of racist intent in gerrymandering. Now, I want to provide just a little bit of context to this because it's kind of mangled in the summary. They're now saying you no longer have to act as if you're not looking at race, okay? You can openly say, we are using race as approximate to politics or partisan politics. So if it's a bunch of black people in a district, it's okay for you to say, well, those black people are Democrats. And that was something that was always off the table. I mean, if you brought it up in a meeting, people acted as if you just said something illegal because that could get your map kicked out because of process, all right? Let's put them up. Justice Alito's opinion for the conservative supermajority weakens precedents that protected against racist redistricting, granting state lawmakers great authority to segregate residents by skin color within the district. Despite Justice Alito's damaging opinion, Justice Clarence Thomas solo concurrence. He didn't have to do this, demanding the Supreme Court overturn all precedents limiting gerrymandering, including one vote, he asserted, that has a remedy. This remedy doesn't fall under the court's equity power. Thomas argued the court lacks constitutional authority to redraw maps. And controversially, he blamed Brown versus Board of Education for this whole involvement of the court for gerrymandering. So here's the novel argument of Clarence Thomas, and he literally wrote a know-nothing-ass opinion. He didn't have to write this. Nobody gives a damn about his concurrence. So he writes it because he wants to get this Brown versus Board of Education piece in. So he says, listen, the court should have never been involved in this. We lack the constitutional authority. Lies. That's a complete lie. That's a complete lie. Because if it is a matter of national concern, that's a federal issue, a great national concern. That is a matter of great national concern. How districts are drawn. So he's lying, all right? And I'm sure every single Supreme Court justice would disagree with his statement in that concurrence. Then he pivots back and says, and what started this whole thing of the court getting involved in this stuff, Brown versus Board of Education. What is happening? What was Brown versus Board of Education about? It wasn't even about race. It wasn't about race. Look at the filing. The filing was about the inequitable distribution of resources. And the other side argued fair but equal, right? Fair but equal. There's no race. Equal was not about race. Equal was about resources. What the court determined is that it was not equal. There was no equal distribution of the resources, and they had no willingness to authentically, equally distribute resources. So the case was won based on the reality of taxes and how taxes are distributed to benefit our children. I don't know what game Clarence Thomas is playing by gaslighting inside of a concurrent opinion by placing another settled decision in the limelight, but he's up to something. All right, Ben, thoughts here?
This story is just mind-boggling. I think it's perfect that Clarence Thomas's last name is Tom. He's probably an uncle to somebody as well. It is a very egregious, obvious animus towards his own race of people. To speak, he always has said that Brown versus Board of Education was a wrong decision, saying that there was no suffering that Black students had by not being allowed to attend the better funded, better resourced white schools. And that, so in his world, in Clarence Thomas's world, there should still be to this day completely segregated schools. That's the world in which he lives. He then speaks literally, as you mentioned, against one person, one vote. He thinks that is not necessary. Luckily, like you mentioned also, this is just his opinion that he's putting out there. It's not the ruling. The ruling does already crumble and completely crack the ability for courts to throw out racist maps. So that is horrible, but mind-boggling that Thomas wants to go even further. He even in his statement said that the court should never have been against malapportionment, which means that literally not only can they now with this ruling put people of one race all into one district or into fewer districts to reduce the amount of their vote, the power of their vote, but they can have districts malapportioned completely different sizes. Like, for example, in 1960, the population of Vermont's House districts ranged from 38 people to 33,000 people in districts, to that much weakened. So the people in the smallest district, their vote counted 868 times more than that of a resident of the largest district. And they would, of course, do that along racial lines and try to take all power out of Black people's vote. I mean, that's so egregious. That's not even 3/5. That's 1 in 868. Talk about a fraction that just completely disenfranchises, disrespects, and destroys the ability of somebody to feel represented in this country that's supposed to be a representative democracy of all people, a government of all people. It's so confusing, it's so disgusting, and no surprise that the dynamic, corrupt duo of Alito and Thomas are in lockstep with this, and Thomas pushing him to go even further. They're probably gonna have a barbecue together this weekend with upside down hanging flags about how this country isn't what we all believe that it is. And maybe it's not, if these two are 2/9 of who are in charge in our highest court of the land. It's disgusting, it's frightening.
So damn sad.
Let's get term limits in these courts.
Yeah, it's like they're getting prepared for a Trump presidency because their decisions are reflecting his policies.